We'll start by me getting the lens cap off that thing from all the professionals here in the shop. But hi, I'm Aaron James Draplin, and welcome to the Draplin Design Company. And here we are. Let's get going. So here at the Draplin Design Company, it's basically just me doing whatever it takes to make cool stuff. And along the way, a full line of spirited merch, plastic things with DDC all over it, and of course, field notes. It's just a little book, and there's some staples and some paper, and nice little edges and rounded corners. I am surrounded by tons and tons of things, and I've had to go dig it up in the deadest, weirdest places, places where you have to talk to people and other sketchy stuff like that. And out there in the world, you're digging around, you're looking at stuff, you're gonna find stuff like that. We're in this world where those programs, they offer you a million options, and you see too much used. And when you go back and you look at this old world, there's just sort of reminders of just a simple little logo, a simple couple little shapes. I like things that worked 40 years ago and then work right now in the smack dab of 2014, right? So. Okay, you guys, Lynda.com has sort of challenged me to make a logo. I picked one called All Base, right? So All Base would be, then the story goes, they're from Tennessee, and there's a sort of heritage sort of component where they've been, doing business for a lot of years. And it's slab concrete, right? So, all base concrete foundations, right? So what if they came to me and said, we've been doing business for 100 years, and we don't want to look like 2014. We want to look like something maybe our grandparents might have signed off on 50 or 60 years ago. With any logo, just start writing the name out. Lowercase, uppercase. So we're just kind of taking a look at what we're working with here. Now, maybe there's something about it being this heritage quality where you're going to do this kind of handwritten thing. But, you quickly, just this way, kind of say, well, there's maybe something there that we go explore, right? Now, listen, this is sketching. This is meant to be fast and fun and just kind of free. Your hand is freer here than it would be on your Illustrator. Now, of course, you look at that and you kind of say, that A, what if we just make them a killer burly A, and it's this big slab of concrete. There's already colors that start coming to mind, these grays, and maybe a little bit of earth tones or wet concrete or something. And right there, you already have a color palette. And you start making notes about stuff. So you're just kind of saying, all right, concrete, grays, and you're just sort of writing stuff down, When you make this logo, there's a sense of me that always likes to pretend that All Base is as big as their biggest competitor, right? But more often than not in my life, they're smaller and crustier, right? And design can elevate them, and there's a sort of a subversive quality to that. So when my buddies in a band come to me, it's a fight. It's a fight to say, we're not funded, how I'm not even getting paid, but we're gonna make them look as good or even better or more considered than the guys in the major label. That's been my life forever now. So the same thing sort of here, is to go take a look at, we've looked at what things look like out there, and you see a certain vernacular and a certain flavor, but what's most appropriate for these guys? What if we start, making some slabs here and thinking of sediment and layers and things underground and stuff, and it's when you take a look at that thing and you say, okay, we got a little A happening right there. There's so many ways you could take it. You think of what are the basics of an A? This, and this. Well, if we take that guy, and there's our big old foundation, something's coming out of that thing. Now, listen, I already hit a couple things just in the last, 2 minutes that I wasn't expecting, and that's the magic of a pencil on paper, on field notes, $9.95 for 3, you guys. Come on, get it together. So listen, I love books. You can see behind me I have a big old library here. But to trace back, the things that have been super critical in my half-wit career, it's 2 books here by Mr. Koyama. Any which one of these pages, there's just, you can see I have beat this thing pretty good, but there's just this sense of ooh, man. There's just a sense of clarity, you know? And I'll just go dig around these things to look at the simplicity. Because listen, first thing to remember, all this has been done before. But yet, any one of these in the right context in 2014, it'll feel just as fresh today. Now, I don't think that works the same when you take something made in 2014 and try to go back there to the dawn of sort of like, corporate design. So, this is the stuff that I love, corporate identity manual. It's just like, man, I mean, corporate's a weird word, especially in this town of Portland, Oregon. But you can't mess with the sort of bedrock of understanding how a logo works all over the world, or let me just see if I can find something cool here. Ooh, man, that is great. How to handle it. This idea of like, okay, here's this Louisiana Pacific, and they made this killer logo, but you really got to think like they're going to be on trucks. Big trucks, little trucks, sides of trucks, hoods of trucks. And here's how they go and look. It's one thing to design that logo and have it just floating on this like PDF, and you're sort of drunk on white space and negative space and just floating. Rarely will you see it that way. The way you're going to see it is on some stupid little Instagram in the corner, right? Or, on a guy's business card, or like embroidered on his like sweatshirt or something. That's where you're going to see it. So at all times, show context. Show context. Okay, we're going to take a couple of those sketches that we busted out pretty quick, and we're just going to go try to rebuild it. So let's just start. Everything is a basic shape. So take this guy, and remember, command and dupe, and pull it off to the side. And then you kind of say, well, I want a little triangle. Out of my symbols palette, I've got these guys already built for quickness sake. So we're just going to jump in here and kind of say, okay, let's get a color that's kind of weird. And let's make a little line here. That's going to be our little separators here. And let's just get these things to snap on these edges, because all we're using is we're just going to try to go make 4 equal parts. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll grab these lines and pull them out. We're going to center everything. The top line and the bottom line snap to these top and bottom edges, but we want to go through and make sure that those little guys are equidistant. So there you go. And now we're just going to, before we do anything, we're going to kind of click and drag and dupe it. Because here's the thing, is like when you look at that thing, you don't want to go and start tearing this thing apart until to make sure, because what if you have to take a step back? You have to make sure that you've got that thing, because now we're going to go and we're going to look at that sketch. I'm going to put these other little lines in here, and just real quick, real fast, we're going to click and drag again. We're going to grab all that stuff. We're going to make it white. And like, we got a logo that we're already starting to build there, right? Like, look at that. That's starting to work. And then you can quickly take this little guy off to the side, group it all, make a tiny little version of it, and then kind of just see how they feel. There's already something starting to happen there. Now becomes the fun part. We've got something to work with. Now, maybe that top was just a little too much. Well, we can take that little guy and kind of scooch it in a little bit and say, okay, that's cool. Now pull it off here to the side. Let those guys go white. And then start messing with some of this stuff to make these big old slabs. So maybe there's an A that's starting to happen. But it's kind of getting this kind of pyramid kind of thing going. But now as you step back, that's another version right there. That's just a little different than what we were having, happening right here. So you can kind of see here, I've already, I built this thing pretty quick. And when you go look at your outline version, all that math is all nice and intact. And you've got it live, always keep it live. Because now if we go grab a piece of type, something's starting to happen already. And it's just some big extended accidents grotesque. So now to quickly take a look at that thing and say, well, wait a second. I kind of like this one sketch where I had the A kind of working off some of the different pieces back there. Well, let's go plop one in there. So we'll go grab a little triangle. We just started one right here. We're going to get rid of this guy. We're going to snap it to the bottom of here. We're going to get that thing in there. We're going to bring it down. We'll get rid of this other guy and kind of say, okay, now we're getting into some zones here. We can kind of say, all right, maybe it's a little too much, but remember, now we've got those pieces, we can always go back to where we were. So we can go back and say, all right, let's try this real quick. Now you can take a version over here and just quickly say, well, let's go try it to where we have the triangles on the inside of there also. So some quick ways to do it are just go through, flatten that guy, what does he call it? What do you even call that thing? Just sort of minus front. Go grab those two right there. This is just to be fast because the math isn't going to be totally perfect. But if you got your math right, things might start to feel good. You can see here I was doing this. All these angles are all the same because I was using parts and pieces to subtract and minus and kind of pathfind my way out of it. And you start hitting right here, you're saying, well, all right, man, we got an A, we got a little base, and there's your all base A maybe. And as we're working through this stuff, there's all sorts of pieces you can start building. Now, if I put it in some shapes, I put a little type next to it, you can see there, man, that thing's feeling pretty good. And as I started working my way over, it's like, what if there's a gradation? What if there's this little base part that's a little bit darker? We've got some quick ideas of what this thing could be. There it is working in concrete. Here it is laid over a photo. Here it is as just a nice shape and then a nice piece of type next to it. And if the type isn't, if we're not feeling it, okay, that's okay, because there's a lot of ways you can do it. You can do it something like this and bring this guy in a little bit smaller and just let it be like, there's your patch on your hat already done. But the cool part is if we pull this guy out of here, it'll work that way too. As a way to test this stuff, I have all these things built into my symbol palettes just to kind of say, all right, those first t-shirts for all the worker guys there, and we're just going to make some shirts for the dudes out, loading up the cement. Bam. We were hitting something over here, and maybe that's it right there. Yeah, that might feel like a little tent or something, but we're just going fast. Now let's just grab this guy real quick and plop something in there. Now it's not going to be quite right, but when you take this guy and put that guy on a t-shirt, and you can kind of say, wow, man, that might work too. That might work too. The thicknesses need a little bit of work, but I left all those guys live in there. So you can kind of take this and say, all right, I want that thickness to be brought up just a little bit more. So there's all three equidistant pieces. And there's something starting to happen. If it isn't feeling right, you can kind of take a look at like what these things could be. Here it is sort of 1960. Here's a big old House Industries that has, maybe to modernize this thing, if you look at some of these characters, they're these nice big chiseled edges. There might be something there. Let's just get those colors all feeling right. Make sure it's all nice and centered up. And something's starting to happen. And then at all times, as you're going through, what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly take another big blast of color and see what it feels like on a dark value. So at all times, you want to make sure that this thing feels good on a dark value also. Now you kind of say, well, it's kind of hard to read. It's kind of hard to read. So, okay, let's give it just a little bit of hierarchy. There's our logo. Here's our name. And stuff is starting to happen. That was what? A couple minutes of sketching, bring it into the machine, tuning things up, seeing how things felt. I know if I go another 20 minutes or another couple of days that we're gonna hit something and be able to show them 7, 8 strong directions, complete with a nice rationale of why we did what we did and what we were thinking. And it's kind of like a volume knob to kind of say, here it is, what we think it could work right now, but we get out into the ether a little bit and it might be really fun that way. And that's just like sort of my job to show them a range, right? And it all comes from here and then quickly building it here and then getting into a nice presentation, and well, sealing a deal. When I went freelance in 2004, it was hard to leave because you left health insurance, you left 401ks, But equally, my horizon opened to where I could take on little crusty things and then take on things that were maybe for no money, but later on trick design into hiring me. So that leap for me was just sort of like, it just really freed me up. And has freelance always been perfect? Not even close, you know? I've had guys stiff me, the client just completely do like a big old 180, and you lose all the work you've done. But that's what we're up against. I've found that in my life, you know, working for myself, working with my buddies has been just more like a reason to want to get up in the morning. You know, I feel better about it, I feel excited, I feel engaged, and I can dream. You know, I turned 40 and your bones hurt and your back hurts and your feet hurt and whatever the hell else. It doesn't matter because I need to make some new little logo for something. And I can't wait to see how the sticker turned out, the cool little, you know, kiss cut in the back, as much as the poster, you know, with 6 colors and flash printing and weird paper, and then how to ship them here. Every time I turn around, there's something to deal with here. And I love that little world I've sort of built for myself, so, yeah.